Hello, everybody. Welcome to another reading session with the Chattering Magpie. Happy to be here, you guys, and I hope that you're having a wonderful Monday so far. Now, today I am going to just dive right into Jane Eyre. We have, like in the last read along, we had like a lot of stuff happening with the rivers and just the whole back history of the Rivers family and how they're related to Jane. It's been a wild ride, right? So today we're gonna learn what what new twist is coming up for Jane. And I am glad that you guys are with me so we can all read along and find out what's going to happen next with Jane. What new adventures, what new projects she has in mind. I don't know, you guys. I am, of course, excited to find out. So anyway, um, happy as always to see everybody here. Early gang, hello. We had Red Tempest was the very first one to join us. Hello, Red. Here, have a whole bunch of hearts from your magpie. And of course, we had Bluckstrot says, "Good day, mates of the early gang." Hello. Happy to see you here too. And Little Butterfly as well. And Cat Asterisk says, "Hello, everybody." Hello. So, like I said before earlier, we are going to just dive right into this chapter. I don't think I need to go do a much too big of a TLDR because I think most of us have caught up. So let's just get started. Yes, Red, let's see what happens next for Jane. Let's do this. So we have chapter 34. It was near Christmas by the time all was settled. The season of general holiday approached. I now closed Morton's school, taking care that the parting would not be barren on my side. Good fortune opens the hand as well as the heart wonderfully, and to give somewhat when we have largely received is but to afford a vent to the unusual ebullition of the sensations. I had long felt with pleasure that many of my rustic scholars liked me, and when we parted, that consciousness was confirmed. They manifested their affection plainly and strongly. Deep was my gratification to find I had really a place in their unsophisticated hearts. I promised them that never a week should pass in the future that I did not visit them and give them an hour's teaching in their school. Mr. Rivers came up as, having seen the classes, now numbering 60 girls, file out before me, and locked the door, I stood with the key in my hand, exchanging a few words of special farewell with some half-dozen of my best scholars. As decent, respectable, modest, and well-informed young women as could be found in the ranks of the British peasantry. And that is saying a great deal, for after all, the British peasantry are the best taught, best mannered, and most self-respecting of any in Europe. Since these days, I have seen paysans and baroninnen, sorry, Blockshot for for butchering that, and the best of them seem to me ignorant, coarse, and besotted, compared with my Morton girls. Do you consider you have got your reward for a season of exertion? Asked Mr. Rivers when they were gone. Does not the consciousness of having done some real good in your day and generation give pleasure? Doubtless. And you have only toiled a few months. Would not a life devoted to the task of regenerating your race be well spent? Yes, I said, but I could not go on forever so. I want to enjoy my own faculties as well as cultivate those of other people. I must enjoy them now. Don't recall either my mind or body to the school. I am out of it and disposed for full holiday. He looked grave. What now? What sudden eagerness is this you evince? What are you going to do? To be as active as I can. And first, I must beg you to set Hannah at liberty and get somebody else to wait on you. You want her? Yes, to go with me to Moor House. Diana and Mary will be at home in a week, and I want to have everything in order against their arrival. I understand. I thought you were flying off on some excursion." "It is better so. Hannah shall go with you." "Tell her to be ready by tomorrow, then. And here's a schoolroom key. I will give you the key of my cottage in the morning." He took it. "You give it up very gleefully. I don't quite understand your lightheartedness, because I cannot tell what employment you propose to yourself as a substitute for the one you are relinquishing. What aim, what purpose, what ambition in life do you have now?" "My first aim will be to clean down. Do you comprehend the force of the expression? To clean down Moor House from chamber to cellar. My next, to rub it up with beeswax, oil, and an indefinite number of cloths till it glitters again. My third, to arrange every chair, table, bed, carpet with mathematical precision. Afterwards, I shall go near to ruin you in coals and peat, to keep up good fires in every room. And lastly, the 2 days preceding that, on which your sisters are expected, will be devoted by Hannah and me to such a beating of eggs, sorting of currants, grating of spices, compounding of Christmas cakes, chopping up of materials for mince pies, and solemnizing of other culinary rites, as words can convey but in an inadequate notion of to the uninitiated like you. My purpose, in short, is to have all things in an absolutely perfect state of readiness for Diana and Mary before next Thursday, and my ambition is to give them a beau ideal of a welcome when they come." St. John smiled slightly. Still, he was dissatisfied. "It is all very well for the present, but seriously, I trust that when the first flush of vivacity is over, you will look a little higher than domestic endearments and household joys." "The best things the world has," I interrupted. "No, Jane, no. This world is not the scene of fruition. Do not attempt to make it so, nor of rest. Do not turn slothful." "I mean, on the contrary, to be busy." "Jane, I excuse you for the present. 2 months' grace I allow you for the full enjoyment of your new position, and for pleasing yourselves with this late-found charm of relationship. But then I hope you will begin to look beyond Moor House and Morton, and sisterly society, and the selfish calm and sensual comfort of civilized affluence. I hope your energies will then once more trouble you with their strength." I looked at him with surprise. "St. John, I think you're almost wicked to talk so. I am disposed to be as content as a queen, and you try to stir me up to restlessness. To what end?" "To the end of turning to profit the talents which God has committed to your keeping, and of which He will surely one day demand a strict account. Jane, I shall watch you closely and anxiously. I warn you of that, and try to restrain the disproportionate fervor with which you throw yourself into commonplace home pleasures. Don't cling so tenaciously to ties of the flesh. Save your constancy and ardor for an adequate cause. Forbear to waste them on trite, transient objects. Do you hear, Jane?" "Yes, just as if you were speaking Greek. I feel I have adequate cause to be happy, and I will be happy. Goodbye." Happy at Moor House I was, and hard I worked, and so did Hannah. She was charmed to see how jovial I could be amidst the bustle of a house turned topsy-turvy, how I could brush and dust and clean and cook, and really, after a day or two of confusion, worse confounded, it was delightful by degrees to invoke order from the chaos ourselves had made. I had previously taken a journey to S to purchase some new furniture, my cousins having given me carte blanche to effect what alterations I pleased, and a sum having been set aside for that purpose. The ordinary sitting-room and bedrooms I left much as they were, for I knew Diana and Mary would derive more pleasure from seeing again the old homely tables and chairs and beds than from the spectacle of the smartest innovations. Still, some novelty was necessary to give to the return the piquancy which I wished it to be invested. Dark, handsome new carpets and curtains, an arrangement of some carefully selected antique ornaments in porcelain and bronze, new coverings and mirrors and dressing cases for the toilet tables, answered the end. They looked fresh without being glaring. A spare parlor and bedroom I refurnished entirely. with old mahogany and crimson upholstery. I laid canvas on the passage, carpets on the stairs. When all was finished, I thought Moor House as complete a model of bright, modest snugness within, as it was, at the season, a specimen of wintry waste and desert dreariness without. The eventful Thursday at length came. They were expected about dark, and ere dusk fires were lit upstairs and below. The kitchen was in perfect trim. Hannah and I were dressed, and all was in readiness. St. John arrived first. I had entreated him to keep quite clear of the house till everything was arranged, and, indeed, the bare idea of the commotion, at once sordid and trivial, going on within its walls, sufficed to scare him to estrangement. He found me in the kitchen, watching the progress of certain cakes for tea, then baking. Approaching the hearth, he asked if I was at last satisfied with housemaid's work. I answered by inviting him to accompany me on a general inspection of the result of my labors. With some difficulty, I got him to make a tour of the house. He just looked in at the doors I opened, and when he had wandered upstairs and downstairs, he said I must have gone through a great deal of fatigue and trouble to have effected such considerable changes in so short a time. But not a syllable did he utter indicating pleasure in the improved aspect of his abode. This silence damped me. I thought perhaps the alterations had disturbed some old associations he valued. I inquired whether this was the case, no doubt in a somewhat crestfallen tone. Not at all. He had, on the contrary, remarked that I had scrupulously respected every association. He feared, indeed, I must have bestowed more thought on the matter than it was worth. How many minutes, for instance, had I devoted to studying the arrangement of this very room? By the by, could I tell him where such a book was? I showed him the volume on the shelf. He took it down, and withdrawing to his accustomed window recess, he began to read it. Now, I did not like this reader. St. John was a good man, but I began to feel he had spoken truth of himself when he said he was hard and cold. The humanities and amenities of life had no attraction for him, its peaceful enjoyments no charm. Literally, he lived only to aspire after what was good and great, certainly, but he would never rest, nor approve of others resting around him. As he looked at his lofty forehead, still and pale as a white stone, at his fine lineaments fixed in study, I comprehended all at once that he would hardly make a good husband, that it would be a trying thing to be his wife. I understood, as by inspiration, the nature of his love for Miss Oliver. I agreed with him that it was but a love of the senses. I comprehended how he should despise himself for the feverish influence it exercised over him, how he should wish to stifle and destroy it, how he should mistrust its ever conducting permanently to his happiness or hers. I saw he was of the material from which nature hews her heroes, Christian and pagan, her lawgivers, her statesmen, her conquerors, a steadfast bulwark for great interest to rest upon, but at the fireside too often a cold, cumbrous column, gloomy and out of place. This parlour is not his sphere, I reflected. The Himalayan ridge or Caffrey brush, even the plague-cursed Guinea coast swamp, would suit him better. He may eschew the calm of domestic life. It is not his element. There his faculties stagnate. They cannot develop or appear to advantage. It is in scenes of strife and danger, where courage is proved, and energy exercised, and fortitude tasked, that he will speak and move, the leader and superior. A married child would have the advantage of him on his hearth. He is right to choose a missionary's career. I can see it now. "They're coming! They're coming!" cried Hannah, throwing open the parlour door. At the same moment, old Carlo barked joyfully. Out I ran. It was now dark, but a rumbling of wheels was audible. Hannah soon had a lantern lit. The vehicle had stopped at the wicket. The driver opened the door. First one well-known form, then another stepped out. In a minute I had my face under their bonnets, in contact first with Mary's soft cheek, then with Diana's flowing curls. They laughed, kissed me, then Hannah patted Carlo, who was half wild with delight, and asked eagerly if all was well, and being assured in the affirmative, hastened into the house. They were stiff with their long and jolting drive from Whitcross, and chilled with the frosty night air, but their pleasant countenances expanded to the cheerful firelight. While the driver and Hannah brought in the boxes, they demanded to see St. John. At this moment he advanced from the parlor. They both threw their arms around his neck at once. He gave each one a quiet kiss, said in a low tone a few words of welcome, stood a while to be talked to, and then intimating that he supposed they would soon rejoin him in the parlor, withdrew there as to a place of refuge. I had lit their candles to go upstairs, but Diana had first to give. But Diana, sorry guys. Wait, I see a comment. So Jane now agrees for him to leave on his missionary work. Red Tempest says, yes, she now sees that he truly is not suited for domestic comforts and a quiet, peaceful life. He does not value, just stability. He doesn't value those kind of domestic feelings, warmth of home. No, that's not for him. And he disapproves of Jane seeming to enjoy these things. Like, what the heck, dude? Like, you do you, but don't tell Jane how to feel or how she should live her life now. Come on. She's your cousin, but she's not, like somebody you can boss around. Anyway, I had lit their candles to go upstairs, but Diana had first to give hospitable orders respecting the driver. This done, both followed me. They were delighted with the renovation and decorations of their rooms, with the new drapery and fresh carpets and rich tinted china vases. They expressed their gratification ungrudgingly. I had the pleasure of feeling that my arrangements met their wishes exactly, and that what I had done added a vivid charm to their joyous return home. Sweet was that evening. My cousins, full of exhilaration, were so eloquent in narrative and comment that their fluency covered St. John's taciturnity. He was sincerely glad to see his sisters, but in their glow of fervor and flow of joy, he could not sympathize. The event of the day, that is the return of Diana and Mary, pleased him. But the accompaniments of that event, the glad tumult, the garrulous glee of reception, irked him. I saw he wished the calmer morrow was come. In the very meridian of the night's enjoyment, about an hour after tea, a rap was heard at the door. Hannah entered with the intimation that a poor lad was come, and that unlikely time, to fetch Mr. Rivers to see his mother, who was drawing away. Where does she live, Hannah? Clear up at Whitbur's Brow, almost 4 miles off, and more and miles all the way. Tell him I will go. I'm sure, sir, you had better not. It's the worst road to travel after dark that can be. There is no track at all over the bog, and then it is such a bitter night, the keenest wind you ever felt. You had better send word, sir, that you will be there in the morning. But he was already in the passage, putting on his cloak, and without one objection, one murmur, he departed. It was then 9 o'clock. He did not return till midnight. Starved and tired enough he was, but he looked happier than when he set out. He had performed an act of duty, made an exertion, felt his own strength to do and deny, and was on better terms with himself. I am afraid the whole of the ensuing week tried his patience. It was Christmas week. We took to no settled employment, but spent it in a sort of merry domestic dissipation. The air of the moors, the freedom of home, the dawn of prosperity acted on Diana and Mary's spirits like some life-giving elixir. They were gay from morning till noon, and from noon till night. They could always talk, and their discourse witty, pithy, original, had such charms for me that I preferred listening to and sharing in it to doing anything else. St. John did not rebuke our vivacity, but he escaped from it. He was seldom in the house. His parish was large, the population scattered, and he found daily business in visiting the sick and poor in its different districts. One morning at breakfast, Diana, after looking a little pensive for some minutes, asked him if his plans were yet unchanged. Unchanged and unchangeable, was the reply, and he proceeded to inform us that his departure from England was now definitely fixed for the ensuing year. And Rosamond Oliver? Suggested Mary, the words seeming to escape her lips involuntarily, for no sooner had she uttered them than she made a gesture as if wishing to recall them. St. John had a book in his hand. It was his unsocial custom to read at meals. He closed it and looked up. Rosamond Oliver, said he, is about to be married to Mr. Granby, one of the best connected and most estimable residents in S. Grandson and heir to Sir Frederick Granby. I had the intelligence from her father yesterday. His sisters looked at each other and at me. We all three looked at him. He was serene as glass. The match must have been got up hastily, said Diana. They cannot have known each other for long. But 2 months. They met in October at the county ball at S. But there were no obstacles to a union. No, but where there are no obstacles to a union, as in the present case, where the connection is in every point desirable, delays are unnecessary. They will be married as soon as S. place, which Sir Frederick gives up to them, can be refitted for the reception. This time, I found St. John alone after this communication. I felt tempted to inquire if the event distressed him, but he seemed so little to need sympathy that, so far from venturing to offer him more, I experienced some shame at the recollection of what I had already hazarded. Besides, I was out of practice in talking to him. His reserve was again frozen over, and my frankness was congealed beneath it. He had not kept his promise of treating me like his sisters. He continually made little chilling differences between us, which did not at all tend to the development of cordiality. In short, now that I was acknowledged his kinswoman and lived under the same roof with him, I felt the distance between us to be far greater than when he had known me only as the village schoolmistress. When I remembered how far I had been once admitted to his confidence, I could hardly comprehend his present frigidity. Wonder what's up with St. John and why he's being so cold and mean. But she is calling out the detail that though he said he would be as a brother to her, he's still kind of treating her like they're not family. Such being the case, I felt not a little surprised when he raised his head suddenly from the desk over which he was stooping and said, "You see, Jane, the battle is fought, and the victory won." Startled at thus being addressed, I did not immediately reply. After a moment's hesitation, I answered, "But are you sure you're not in the position of those conquerors whose triumphs have cost them too dear? Will not such another ruin you?" "I think not. And if I were, it does not much signify. I shall never be called upon to contend for such another. The event of the conflict is decisive. My way is now clear. I thank God for it." So saying, he returned to his papers and his silence. As our mutual happiness, that is, Diana's, Mary's, and mine, settled into a quieter character, and we resumed our usual habits and regular studies, St. John stayed more at home. He sat with us in the same room, sometimes for hours together. While Mary drew, Diana pursued a course of encyclopedic reading she had, to my awe and amazement, undertaken, and I fagged away at German. He pondered a mystic lore of his own, that of some Eastern tongue, the acquisition of which he thought necessary to his plans. Thus engaged, he appeared sitting in his own recess, quiet and absorbed enough. But that blue eye of his had a habit of leaving the outlandish-looking grammar and wandering over and sometimes fixing upon us, his fellow students, with a curious intensity of observation. If caught, it would be instantly withdrawn. Yet, ever and anon, it returned searchingly to our table. I wondered what it meant. I wondered, too, at the punctual satisfaction he never failed to exhibit on an occasion that seemed to me of a small moment, namely, my weekly visit to Morton School. And still more was I puzzled when, if the day was unfavorable, if there was snow or rain or high wind, and his sisters urged me not to go, he would invariably make light of their solicitude and encourage me to accomplish the task without regard to the elements. Jane is not such a weakling as you would make her, he would say. She can bear a mountain blast, or a shower, or well, great, yeah, go ahead. Go ahead, St. John. She can bear all of that. She can bear a mountain blast, or a shower, or a few flakes of snow as well as any of us. Her constitution is both sound and elastic, better calculated to endure variations of climate than many more robust. And when I returned, sometimes a good deal tired, and not a little weather-beaten, I never dared complain, because I saw that to murmur would be to vex him. On all occasions, fortitude pleased him. The reverse was a special annoyance. One afternoon, however, I got leave to stay at home because I really had a cold. His sisters were going to Morton in my stead. I sat reading Schiller, he deciphering his crabbed Oriental scrolls. As I exchanged a translation for an exercise, I happened to look his way. There I found myself under the influence of the ever-watchful blue eye. How long it had been searching me through and over, I cannot tell. So keen was it, and yet so cold, I felt for the moment superstitious, as if I were sitting in the room with something uncanny. Jane, what are you doing? Learning German. I want you to give up German and learn Hindustani. You're not in earnest. I'm such an earnest that I must have it so, and I will tell you why. He then went on to explain that Hindustani was the language he was himself at present studying, that, as he advanced, he was apt to forget the that he was apt to forget the commencement, that it would assist him greatly to have a pupil with whom he might again and again go over the elements, and so fix them thoroughly in his mind, that his choice had hovered for some time between me and his sisters, but that he had fixed on me because he saw I could sit at a task the longest of the three. Would I do him this favor? I should not perhaps have to make the sacrifice long, as I wanted now barely 3 months to his departure. St. John was not a man to be lightly refused. He felt that every impression made on him, either for pain or pleasure, was deep engraved and permanent. I consented. When Diana and Mary returned, the former found her scholar transferred from her to her brother. She laughed, and both she and Mary agreed that St. John should never have persuaded them to such a step. He answered quietly, I know it. I found him a very patient, very forbearing, and yet an exacting master. He expected me to do a great deal, and when I fulfilled his expectations, he, in his own way, fully testified his approbation. By degrees, he acquired a certain influence over me that took away my liberty of mind. His praise and notice were more restraining than his indifference. I could no longer talk or laugh freely when he was by, because a tiresomely importunate instinct reminded me that vivacity, at least in me, was distasteful to him. I was so fully aware that only serious moods and occupations were acceptable. Sorry, guys. Oh my gosh. Okay. Water break, really quick. Sorry about that. I was so fully aware that only serious moods and occupations were acceptable that in his presence every effort to sustain or follow any other became vain. I fell under a freezing spell. When he said go, I went. Come, I came. Do this, I did it. But I did not love my servitude. I wished many a time he had continued to neglect me. One evening when, at bedtime, his sisters and I stood around him, bidding him good night, he kissed each of them, as was his custom, and, as was equally his custom, he gave me his hand. Diana, who chanced to be in a frolicsome humor, she was not painfully controlled by his will, for hers in another way was as strong, exclaimed, St. John, you used to call Jane your third sister, but you don't treat her as such. You should kiss her too. She pushed me toward him. I thought Diana very provoking and felt uncomfortably confused, and while I was thus thinking and feeling, St. John bent his head. His Greek face was brought to a level with mine. His eyes questioned my eyes piercingly. He kissed me. There are no such things as marble kisses or ice kisses, or I should say my ecclesiastical cousin's salute belonged to one of these classes. But there may be experiment kisses, and his was an experiment kiss. When given, he viewed me to learn the result. It was not striking, for I am sure I did not blush. Perhaps I may have turned a little pale, for I felt as if this kiss were a seal affixed to my fetters. He never omitted the ceremony afterwards, and the gravity and quiescence with which I underwent it seemed to invest it for him with a certain charm. As for me, I daily wished more to please him, but to do so I felt daily more and more that I must disown half of my nature, stifle half of my faculties, wrest my tastes from their original bent, force myself to the adoption of pursuits for which I had no natural vocation. He wanted to train me to an elevation I could never reach. It raked me hourly to aspire to the standard he uplifted. The thing was as impossible as mold to my irregular features to correct. The thing was as impossible as to mold my irregular features to his correct and classic pattern, to give to my changeable green eyes the sea blue tint and solemn luster of his own. Not his ascendancy alone, however, held me in thrall at present. Of late it had been easy enough for me to look sad. A cankering evil sat at my heart and drained my happiness at its source. The evil of suspense. Perhaps you think I had forgotten Mr. Rochester, reader, amidst these changes of place and fortune. Not for a moment. His idea was still with me, because it was not a vapor sunshine could disperse, not a sand-trace effigy storms could wash away. It was a name graven on a tablet, fated to last as long as the marble it inscribed. The craving to know what had become of him followed me everywhere. When I was at Morton, I re-entered my cottage every evening to think of that, and now at Moor House I sought my bedroom each night to brood over it. In the course of my necessary correspondence with Mr. Briggs about the will, I had inquired if he knew anything of Mr. Rochester's present residence and state of health. But as St. John had conjectured, he was quite ignorant of all concerning him. I then wrote to Mrs. Fairfax entreating information on the subject. I had calculated with certainty on this step answering my end. I felt sure it would elicit an early answer. I was astonished when a fortnight passed without reply, but when 2 months wore away, and a day after the day the post arrived and brought nothing for me, I fell a prey to the keenest anxiety. I wrote again. There was a chance of my first letter having been missed. Renewed hope followed renewed effort. It shone like the former for some weeks. Then, like it faded, flickered. Not a line, not a word reached me. When half a year wasted in vain expectancy, my hope died out, and then I felt dark indeed. A fine spring shone round me, which I could not enjoy. Summer approached. Diana tried to cheer me. She said I looked ill. ill. Sorry, it's my Spanish accent coming to me. She said I looked ill and wished to accompany me to the seaside. This St. John opposed. He said I did not want dissipation. I wanted employment. My present life was too purposeless. I required an aim, and I suppose by way of supplying deficiencies, he prolonged still further my lesson in Hindustani and grew more urgent in requiring their accomplishment. And I, like a fool, never thought of resisting him. I could not resist him. One day, I had come to my studies in lower spirits than usual. The ebb was occasioned by a poignantly felt disappointment. Hannah had told me in the morning there was no letter for me. And when I went down to take it... Oh no, hold on a second. Hannah had told me in the morning there was a letter for me. And when I went down to take it, almost certain that the long-looked-for tidings were vouchsafed me at last, I found only an unimportant note from Mr. Briggs on business. The bitter check had wrung from me some tears. So basically something about money. Maybe she made money and she's angry and disappointed that it was not about Rochester, but just take the money and be happy, dude. Anyway, the bitter check had wrung from me some tears, and now as I sat poring over the crabbed characters and flourishing tropes of an Indian scribe, my eyes filled again. St. John called me to his side to read. In attempting to do this, my voice failed me. Words were lost in sobs. He and I were the only occupants of the parlor. Diana was practicing her music in the drawing room. Mary was gardening. It was a very fine May day, clear, sunny, and breezy. My companion expressed no surprise at this emotion, nor did he question me as to its cause. He only said, "We will wait a few minutes, Jane, till you are more composed." And while I smothered the paroxysm with all haste, he sat calm and patient, leaning on his desk, and looking like a physician watching the eye of science an expected and fully understood crisis in a patient's malady. Having stifled my sobs, wiped my eyes, and muttered something about not being very well that morning, I resumed my task and succeeded in completing it. St. John put away my books and his, locked his desk, and said, "Now, Jane, you shall take a walk, and with me." "I will call Diana and Mary." "No, I want only one companion this morning, and that must be you. Put on your things, go out by the kitchen door. Take the road towards the head of the marsh glen. I will join you in a moment." I know no medium. I never in my life have known any medium in my dealings with positive hard characters antagonistic to my own. Between absolute submission and determined revolt, I have always faithfully observed the one, up to the very moment of bursting, sometimes with volcanic vehemence, into the other, and as neither present circumstances warranted, nor my present mood inclined me to mutiny, I observed careful obedience to St. John's directions, and in 10 minutes I was treading the wild track of the glen, side by side with him. The breeze was from the west. It came over the hills, sweet with scents of heath and rush. The sky was of stainless blue. The stream descending the ravine, swelled with past spring rains, poured along plentiful and clear, catching golden gleams from the sun and sapphire tints from the firmament. As we advanced and left the track, we trod a soft turf, mossy fine and emerald green, minutely enameled with a tiny white flower and spangled with a star-like yellow blossom. The heels... Oh my gosh, what is wrong with me? My Spanish accent keeps coming out. The hills, not the heels. The hills, meantime, shut us... Sorry. The hills, meantime, shut us quite in, for the glen towards its head wound to their very core. "Let us rest here," said St. John, as we reached the first stragglers of a battalion of rocks guarding a sort of pass, beyond which the beck rushed down a waterfall, and where, still a little further, the mountain shook off turf and flower. had only heath for raiment and crag for gem, where it exaggerated the wild to the savage and exchanged the fresh for the frowning, where it guarded the forlorn hope of solitude and the last refuge for silence. Red Tempest is asking, what is he planning? And Little Butterfly is rolling her eyes and saying, a walk. Little Red Butterfly knows what's coming. Blockshot says, why are so many of the males in this story so unlikable? well, I don't know. Let's see. Blockshot says, yeah, learn what I need. Great. I know. And poor Jane, like I said, like she says here, she can be fiery and she can fight back, but it's only at a point when she's pushed to her limit, or when the occasion like is really like absolutely unendurable. Like if somebody's really like, dude, like she will like immediately like say like no, she will resist. But he's not saying anything like wicked or anything like that. He's just like being himself. She has no way to like resist him. Like her usual fiery nature only comes out either at some extreme outrage, or when the pressure just builds and builds and builds. So far she's just being sad right now. She's our sad girl. Sad girl Jane Eyre. Love you so much. But you need a change, girl. Okay. So yeah, she went on a walk with St. John. What does he want? I took a seat. St. John stood near me. He looked up to the pass and down the hollow. Oh my gosh, is he gonna do the same thing again? That he always like talks and then stays silent for like 10 minutes, and then he says another thing, and then another 10 minutes of silence and reflection. Like, dude, come on, get on with it. His glance wandered away with the stream and returned to traverse the unclouded haven which colored it. Or is it heaven? The unclouded heaven which colored it. He removed his hat, let the breeze stir his hair and kiss the brow. He seemed in communion with the genius of the hunt. With his eye he bade farewell to something. And I shall see it again, he said aloud, in dreams when I sleep by the Ganges, and again in a more remote hour when another slumber overcomes me on the shores of a darker stream. Strange words of a strange love, an austere patriot's passion for his fatherland. He sat down. For half an hour I knew it! For half an hour we never spoke, neither he to me nor I to him. That interval passed, he recommenced. Jane, I go in 6 weeks. I have taken my berth in an East Indiaman which sails on the 20th of June. God will protect you, for you have undertaken his work, I answered. Yes, said he. There is my glory and joy. I am the servant of an infallible master. I am not going out under human guidance, subject to the defective laws and erring control of my feeble fellow worms. Fellow worms, I shall keep that in my lexicon now. My king, my lawgiver, my captain, is the all-perfect. It seems strange to me that all round me do not burn to enlist under the same banner, to join in the same enterprise. All have not your powers, and it would be folly for the feeble to wish to march with the song. I do not speak to the feeble, or think of them. I address only such as are worthy of the work, and competent to accomplish it. Those are few in number, and difficult to discover. You say truly, but when found, it is right to stir them up, to urge and exhort them to the effort, to show them what their gifts are, and why they were given, to speak heaven's message in their ear, to offer them, direct from God, a place in the ranks of his chosen. If they are really qualified for the task, will not their own hearts be the first to inform them of it? I felt as if an awful charm was framing round and gathering over me. I trembled to hear some fatal word spoken which would at once declare and rivet the spell. And what does your heart say? Demanded St. John. My heart is mute. My heart is mute, I answered, struck and thrilled. Then I must speak for it, continued the deep, relentless voice. Jane, come with me to India. Come as my helpmeet and fellow laborer. The glen and sky spun round, the hills heaved. It was as if I had heard a summons from heaven, as if a visionary messenger, like him of Macedonia, had announced, "Come over and help us." But I was no apostle. I could not behold the herald. I could not receive his call. "Oh, St. John," I cried, "have some mercy." I appealed to the one who, in the discharge of what he believed his duty, knew neither mercy nor remorse. He continued, "God and nature intended you for a missionary's wife. It is not personal, but mental endowments they have given you. You are formed for labor, not for love. A missionary's wife you must, shall be. You shall be mine. I claim you, not for my pleasure, but for my sovereign's service." "I'm not fit for it. I have no vocation," I said. He had calculated on these first objections. He was not irritated by them. Indeed, as he leaned back against the crag behind them, folded his hands on his chest, and fixed his countenance, I saw he was prepared for a long and trying opposition, and had taken in a stock of patience to last him to its close. Resolved, however, that the close should be conquest for him. "Humility, Jane," said he, "is the groundwork of Christian virtues. You say right that you're not fit for the work. Who is fit for it? Or who that was ever truly called, believed himself worthy of the summons? I, for instance, am but dust and ashes. With St. Paul, I acknowledge myself the chiefest of the sinners, but I do not suffer the sense of my personal vileness to daunt me. I know my leader, that he is just as well as mighty, and while he has chosen a feeble instrument to perform a great task, he will, from the boundless stores of his providence, supply the inadequacy of the means to the end. Think like me, Jane. Trust like me. It is the rock of ages I ask you to lean on. Do not doubt, but it will bear the weight of your human weakness." "I do not understand a missionary life. I have never studied missionary labors. There, I, humble as I am, can give you the aid you want. I can set you your task from hour to hour, stand by you always, help you from moment to moment. This I could do in the beginning. Soon, for I know your powers, you will be as strong and apt as myself. I will not require my help." "But my powers, where are they for this undertaking? I do not feel them. Nothing speaks or stirs in me while you talk. I am sensible of no light kindling, no fire quickening, no voice counseling or cheering. Oh, I wish I could make you see how much my mind is at this moment like a rayless dungeon, like one shrinking fear fettered in its depths, the fear of being persuaded by you to attempt what I cannot accomplish. I have an answer for you. Hear it. I have watched you ever since we first met. I have made you my study for 10 months. I have proved you in that time by sundry tests, and what have I seen and elicited? In the village school I found you could perform well, punctually, uprightly, labor uncongenial to your habits and inclinations. I saw you could perform it with capacity and tact. You could win while you controlled. In the calm with which you learned, you had become suddenly rich. In the calm with which you learned you had suddenly become rich, I read a mind clear of the vice of Damas. Lucre had no undue power over you. And the resolute readiness with which you cut your wealth into 4 shares, keeping but one to yourself and relinquishing the 3 others to the claim of abstract justice, I recognized the soul that revelled in the flame and excitement of sacrifice. In the tractability with which at my wish you forsook a study in which you were interested, and adopted another because it interested me, in the untiring assiduity with which you have since persevered in it, in the unflagging energy and unshaken temper with which you have met its difficulties, I acknowledge the compliment of the qualities I seek. Jane, you're docile. I love how he starts with docile. My dude. Jane, you're docile, diligent, disinterested, faithful, constant, and courageous, very gentle, and very heroic. Cease to mistrust yourself. I can trust you unreservedly. As a conductress of Indian schools and helper amongst Indian women, your assistance will be to me invaluable. My iron shroud contracted around me, persuasion advanced with slow, sure step. Shut my eyes as I would, these last words of his succeeded in making the way, which had seemed blocked up, comparatively clear. My work, which had appeared so vague, so hopelessly diffuse, condensed itself as he proceeded, and assumed a definite form under his shaping hand. He waited for an answer. I demanded a quarter of an hour to think. Oh my gosh, how long are they going to be there? I would have demanded a quarter of a year to think. I demanded a quarter of an hour to think before I again hazarded a reply. Very willingly, he rejoined, and rising he strode a little distance up the pass, threw himself down on a swell of heath, and there lay still. I can do what he wants me to do. I am forced to see and acknowledge that, I mediated. That is, if life be spared me. But I feel mine is not the existence to be long protracted under the Indian sun. What then? He does not care for that. When my time came to die, he would resign me, in all serenity and sanctity, to the God who gave me. The case is very plain before me. In leaving England, I should leave a loved but empty land. Mr. Rochester is not there, and if he were, what can that ever be to me? My business is to live without him now. Nothing so absurd, so weak, as to drag on from day to day, as if I were waiting some impossible change in circumstances which might reunite me to him. Of course, as St. John once said, I must seek another interest in life to replace the one I lost. Is not the occupation he now offers me truly the most glorious man can adopt or God assign? Is it not, by its noble cares and sublime results, the one best calculated to fill the void left by uptorn affections and demolished hopes? I believe I must say yes, and yet I shudder. Alas, if I join St. John, I abandon half myself. If I go to India, I go to a premature death. And how will the interval between leaving England for India and India for the grave be filled? Oh, I know well. That, too, is very clear to my vision. By straining to satisfy St. John till my sinews ache, I shall satisfy him to the finest central point and furthest outward circle of his expectation. If I do go with him, if I do make the sacrifice he urges, I will make it absolutely. I will throw all on the altar, heart, vitals, the entire victim. He will never love me, but he shall approve me. I will show him energies he has not yet seen, resources he has never suspected. Yes, I can work as hard as he can, and with as little grudging. Consent, then, to his demand it is possible. But for one item, one dreadful item. It is that he asks me to be his wife, and has no more of a husband's heart for me than that frowning giant of a rock, down which the stream is foaming in yonder gorge. He prices me as a soldier He prices me as a soldier would a good weapon, and that is all. Unmarried to him, this would never grieve me, but I can let him complete his Hold on a second. But can I let him complete his calculations, coolly put into practice his plans, go through the wedding ceremony? Can I receive from him the bridal ring, endure all the forms of love, which I doubt not he would scrupulously observe, and and know that the spirit was quite absent? Can I bear the conscientiousness that every endearment he bestows is a sacrifice made on principle? No, such a martyrdom would be monstrous. I will never undergo it. As his sister, I might accompany him, not as his wife. I will tell him so. I love you guys' comments. We have Blockshot says, we'll go for a little walk and talk. We'll be back in a week. Yeah, at this rate, you guys, they're gonna be there for days and days, right? Everybody in the chat is saying, like, don't let him take control. Red Tempest is saying, Jane, let him go alone. Little Butterfly is reminding us Jane can speak for herself. Yes, so when St. John was like, yeah, your heart is mute. I will tell you what you need to do. You need to become a missionary's wife. Yeah, no, that's not how it works, my dear St. John. Ah, man. Yeah. Little Butterfly points out, Jane, you will be miserable. You're already miserable being around him. Yes, and it's not like he's a bad man, but again, he's the sort that will force from her the need to like be approved. She knows herself. She's been around him enough to know that at some point he will become like yet another kind of idol, somebody she would like want to strive to please. Who knows? I don't know. So yeah, this is a moment. Think, Jane, think, as Rogelio Diaz is saying, and continues to say, what will you have after a loveless marriage? I know, exactly. She points out that St. John will definitely do like every single thing that a husband is supposed to do for his wife. Like he will, down to the letter, which means like he would embrace her and whatnot. But it would be done in the name of duty and in the name of doing his, what, you know, as a husband's duty. He must do this thing he doesn't want to do, but he must because it's his duty. So she's like, I cannot. And here's more, you guys. Here's more. Let's continue to read what other things she has to say. I looked towards the knoll. There he lay, still as a prostrate column, his face turned to me, his eye beaming, watchful and keen. He started to his feet and approached me. I am ready to go to India, if I may go free. Your answer requires a commentary. It is not clear. You have hitherto been my adopted brother, I your adopted sister. Let us continue as such. You and I had better not marry. He shook his head. Adopted fraternity will not do in this case. If you were my real sister, it would be different. I should take you and seek no wife. But as it is, either our union must be consecrated and sealed by marriage, or it cannot exist. Practical obstacles oppose themselves to any other plan. Do you not see it, Jane? Consider a moment. Your strong sense will guide you. I did consider it. And still my sense, such as it was, directed me only to the fact that we did not love each other as a man and wife should, and therefore it inferred we ought not to marry. I said so. St. John, I regard you as a brother, you me as a sister. So let us continue. We cannot, he answered with short, sharp determination. It would not do. You have said you will go with me to India. Remember, you have said that. Conditionally. Well, to the main point, the departure with me from England, the cooperation with me in my future labors, you do not object. You have already as good as put your hand to the plough. You are too consistent to withdraw it. You have but one end to keep in view, how the work you have undertaken can be best done. Simplify your complicated interests, feelings, thoughts, wishes, and aims. Merge all considerations in one purpose, that of fulfilling with effect, with power, the mission of your great master. To do so, you must have a coadjutor. To do so, you must have a coadjutor, not a brother. That is a loose tie, but a husband. I, too, do not want a sister. A sister might any day be taken from me. I want a wife. The soul helpmeet I can influence. Oh my gosh, this is terrible. The soul helpmeet I can influence efficiently in life. St. John. Oh no. Jane, run, flee. The soul helpmeet I can you know, you guys, I know Rochester was awful and tough, but this guy scares me more, you guys. This guy scares me more. The soul helpmeet I can influence efficiently in life and retain absolutely till death. Oh my gosh. Poor Jane. Jane, do not give in. I shuddered as he spoke. I felt his influence in my marrow, his hold on my limbs. Seek one elsewhere than in me, St. John. Seek one fitted to you. One fitted to my purpose, you mean? Fitted to my vocation. Again, I tell you, it is not the insignificant private individual, the mere man with the man's selfish senses, I wish to mate. It is the missionary. And I will give the missionary my energies. It is all he wants, but not myself. That would be only adding the husk and shell to the kernel. For them he has no use. I retain them. You cannot, you ought not. Do you think God will be satisfied with half an oblation? Will he accept a mutilated sacrifice? It is the cause of God I advocate. It is under his standard I enlist you. I cannot accept on his behalf a divided allegiance. It must be entire. Oh, I will give my heart to God. You do not want it. I will not swear, reader, but there was not something of repressed sarcasm both in the tone in which I uttered this sentence and in the feeling that accompanied it. I had silently feared St. John till now because I had not understood him. He had held me in awe because he had held me in doubt. How much of him was saint, how much mortal, I could not heretofore tell. But revelations were being made in this conference. The analysis of his nature was proceeding before my eyes. I saw his fallibilities. I comprehended them. I understood that, sitting there where I did, on the bank of heath, and with the handsome form before me, I sat at the feet of a man caring as I. The veil fell from his hardness and despotism. Having felt in him the presence of these qualities, I felt this imperfection and took courage. I was with an equal, one with whom I might argue, one whom, if I saw good, I might resist. He was silent after I had uttered the last sentence, and I presently risked an upward glance in his countenance. His eye, bent on me, expressed at once stern surprise and keen inquiry. Is she sarcastic? And sarcastic to me? It seemed to say. What does this signify? Do not let us forget that this is a solemn matter, he said ere long, one of which we may neither think nor talk lightly without sin. I trust, Jane, you are in earnest when you say you will serve your heart to God. It is all I want. Once wrench your heart from man and fix it on your Maker. The advancement of that Maker's spiritual kingdom on earth will be your chief delight and endeavor. You will be ready to do at once whatever furthers that end. You will see what impetus will be given to your efforts and mine by our physical and mental union in marriage, the only union that gives a character of permanent conformity to the destinies and designs of human beings, and passing over all minor caprices, all trivial difficulties and delicacies of feeling, all scruple about the degree, kind, strength, or tenderness of mere personal inclination, it will hasten to enter into that union at once. Shall I? I said briefly, and I looked at his features. Beautiful in their harmony, but strangely formidable in their still severity. At his brow, commanding but not open, at his eyes, bright and deep and searching but never soft, at his tall imposing figure, and fancied myself in idea his wife. Oh, it would never do. As his curate, his comrade, all would be right. I would cross oceans with him in that capacity, toil under eastern suns, in Asian deserts with him in that office, admire and emulate his courage and devotion and vigor, accommodate quietly to his masterhood, smile undisturbed at his ineradicable ambition, discriminate the Christian from the man, profoundly esteem the one, and freely forgive the other. I should suffer often, no doubt, attached to him only in this capacity. My body would be under rather a stringent yoke, but my heart and mind would be free. I should still have my unblighted self to turn to, my natural, unenslaved feelings with which to communicate in moments of loneliness. There would be recess in my mind which would only be mind, to which he never came, and sentiments growing there fresh and sheltered, with which his austerity would never blight, nor his measured warrior march trample down. But as his wife, at his side always, and always restrained, and always checked, forced to keep the fire of my nature continually low, to compel it to burn inwardly and never utter a cry, though the imprisoned flame consume vital after vital, this would be unendurable. St. John, I exclaimed, when I had got so far in my meditation. Well, he answered icily, I repeat, I freely consent to go with you as your fellow missionary, but not as your wife. I cannot marry you and become part of you. A part of me you must become, he answered steadily. Otherwise the whole bargain is void. How can I, a man not yet 30, take out with me to India a girl of 19 unless she is married to me? How can we be forever together, sometimes in solitude, sometimes amid savage tribes, and unwed? Very well, I said shortly. Under this circumstance, quite as well as if I were either your real sister or a man and clergyman like yourself. It is known that you are not my sister. I cannot introduce you as such. To attempt it would be to fasten injurious suspicion on us both. As for the rest, though you have a man's vigorous brain, you have a woman's heart, and it would not do. It would do, I affirmed with some disdain. Perfectly well. I have a woman's... Hold on a second. Okay. It would do, I affirmed with some disdain. Perfectly well. I have a woman's heart, but not where you're concerned. For you, I have only a comrade's constancy, a fellow soldier's frankness, fidelity, fraternity, if you like, a neophyte's respect, and submission to his hierophant. Nothing more. Don't fear. It is what I want, he said, speaking to himself. It is just what I want. There are obstacles in the way. They must be hewn down. Jane, you would not repent marrying me. Be certain of that. We must be married. I repeated, there is no other way, and undoubtedly enough of love would follow upon marriage to render their union right even in your eyes. I scorn your idea of love. I could not help saying, ooh, as I rose up and stood before him, leaning my back against the rock. I scorn the counterfeit sentiment you offer. Yes, St. John, and I scorn you when you offer it. He looked at me fixedly, compressing his well-cut lips while he did so. Whether he was incensed or surprised or what, it was not easy to tell. He could command his countenance thoroughly. I scarcely expected to hear that expression from you, he said. I think I have done and uttered nothing to deserve scorn. I was touched by his gentle tone and overawed by his high, calm mien. Forgive me the words, St. John, but it is your own fault that I have been roused to speak so unguardedly. You have introduced a topic on which our natures are at variance, a topic we should never discuss. The very name of love is an apple of discord between us. If their reality were required, what should we do? How should we feel? My dear cousin, abandon your scheme of marriage. Forget it. No, said he. It is a long-cherished scheme, and the only one which can secure my great end. But I shall urge you no further at present. Tomorrow I leave home for Cambridge. I have many friends there to whom I should wish to say farewell. I shall be absent a fortnight. Take that space of time to consider my offer, and do not forget that if you reject it, it is not me. St. John, no, St. John. Ha, 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 No. Uh, Take that space of time to consider my offer, and do not forget that if you reject it, it is not me you deny, but God. Through my means he opens to you a noble career. As my wife only can you enter upon it. Refuse to be my wife, and you limit yourself forever to a track of selfish ease and barren obscurity. Tremble lest in that case you should be numbered with those who have denied the faith and are worse than infidels. He had done. Turning from me, he once more looked to the river, looked to the hill. But this time his feelings were all pent in his heart. I was not worthy to hear them uttered. As I walked by his side homeward, I read well in his iron silence all he felt towards me. The disappointment of an austere and despotic nature which has met resistance where it expected submission. The disapprobation of a cool, inflexible judgment which has detected in another feelings and views in which it has no power to sympathize. In short, as a man, he would have wished to coerce me into obedience. It was only as a sincere Christian he bore so patiently with my perversity and allowed so long a space for reflection and repentance. That night, after he had kissed his sisters, he thought proper to forget even to shake hands with me, but left the room in silence. I, who though I had no love, had much friendship for him, was hurt by the marked omission, so much hurt that tears started to my eyes. "I see you and St. John have been quarrelling, Jane," said Diana, "during your walk on the moor. But go after him. He is now lingering in the passage expecting you. He will make it up." Oh my gosh, talk about... Ah! Oh my gosh. No, don't go make up. So he purposely hurts her feelings, and he's waiting for her to come apologize. Yeah. I have not much pride under such circumstances. I would always rather be happy than dignified. Yeah, poor Jane. And I ran after him. Yeah, this is not a good sign, Jane. When you marry him, it's going to be terrible. I mean, if, not when, if, okay, you guys, now spoilers. And I ran after him. He stood at the foot of the stairs. "Good night, St. John," said I. "Good night, Jane," he replied calmly. "Then shake hands," I added. What a cold, loose touch he impressed on my fingers. He was deeply displeased by what had occurred that day. Cordiality would not warm, nor tears move him. No happy reconciliation was to be had with him, no cheering smile or generous word. But still, the Christian was patient and placid, and when I asked him if he forgave me, he answered that he was not in the habit of cherishing the remembrance of vexation, that he had nothing to forgive, not having been offended. And with that answer he left me. I would much rather he had knocked me down. End of chapter. Okay, you guys. That concludes today's reading. I hope you enjoyed it. I knew it was gonna get to you guys. I knew it was gonna absolutely get a rise out of everybody. It got a rise out of me. Seriously, St. John, what the heck, my dude? So let's see what comments you guys had to say. I know you guys are in the same camp. No marriage to St. John. But who knows what's gonna happen, you guys? Remember, St. John has a very strong will. Jane has been slowly been conditioned to look for his approval, and right now he's leaving for 2 weeks. She's gonna be left to stew in misery, and who knows what she's gonna do. You guys have to join me for the next read along. But anyway, yes, Red Temple says you need to think, Jane, think of your happiness. And it's not just like happiness like in a selfish sense, it's like in a reasonable sense. Like, you'd be an idiot to take a step that you know will lead you to heartache in the future. Because she would doubtless, she said like she would develop like some kind of like, well, actually no, doesn't say that. Like, it would just be kind of like cold and empty, because she would be absolutely mastered. Like, he would be her master in everything. Like, he would tell her what to think, what to do, where to go, how to feel, and anytime she would deviate from that, he would be like making her feel miserable, or like she failed him, and she would constantly be looking like trying to fit into his mold. And yet she agrees. She says like, I would make a great missionary. He said he saw some gifts in me, but I have way more to offer. She also has said, I also have nothing here in England. Like, I love Rochester, but it's actually impossible to be with him. Who knows if he's even here in England? There's nothing for me here. So I would be doing a good thing, by becoming a missionary, like do something good and profitable. So it's not the, I mean, she kind of like has to say like, okay, so I probably am gonna die early in like abroad, but I can live with that. Like, honestly, good on you, Jane. I would never, but okay. Um, so Jane is kind of like willing to compromise, but he's not willing to compromise because he says, I'm single, you're single. I want you to be there with me always. I want to absolutely have control of you. I want you to be the one person I can control and have under, like, be my tool. And if you were to go single, you could maybe fall in love with somebody else and get married. Who knows where? Somebody could like steal you away from me. I don't want that. Yeah, very healthy, very, very Christian of you, St. John, to use God as a hammer to bludgeon our poor Jane emotionally like that. Like, man, so many thoughts. Towards the end of this book, we will talk about religion and values and stuff like that, because I find this book incredibly interesting in just how it presents different ways that people see God and how they show God to others, and how just kind of like, oh my gosh, it's so interesting. But anyway, St. John is like up like this amazing Christian, quote unquote, but yet he does not act like a Christian would. I'm sorry. I have never, no, there's no call for what he's doing. I just hope that Jane can stand on her own, and keep to her guns. Oh man. Yeah, Red Tempest says, "Run, Jane, run." It sounds like a meme in the making, Red Tempest. And says, you just made a meme about Jane. I wonder what that meme is gonna be. I have a feeling about what it will be. Oh, it's just super cute. This is super cute. Hold on a second. Okay. Oh, Red Tempest. This is super cute. Thank you. I love it. I love it. I love kitties. Yes. So, let me see. What is this? Oh, is this from last time? Anyway, so yeah, like, what do you guys think is gonna happen with Jane? Is she going to relinquish England? Is she going to successfully convince St. John to take her as a sister? What do you guys think? I look forward to reading your conjectures, and hopefully Jane does give it a good amount of thought. Cat Asterisk says, he wants to marry her. No, he wants company, but he only thinks of himself. He doesn't think of what would be good for her. Yeah, he sees her only. Okay, like, it started wrong, you guys. He said at the very beginning, you were formed for labor, not for love. What kind of lines are those? That's what he started with, you guys. Very early in the chapter, that's what he said. Block Short says, in all languages I know, I lack the words to describe what I think and feel about him, and none of them are pretty good. Try Block Short, though it might possibly get get your comments put on hold. I would have to approve it. YouTube will be like, this is a cuss word in this language. Do you want to approve it? And I would be like, yes, it merits it. Yeah, I get it though. And I'm glad though that Jane did stand up, like little butterflies, like cheering Jane on, like there you go, tell him, Jane. And Kat is absolutely angry. Why use God against her? Yes, exactly. Um, yeah, I don't know. I don't think he was right in saying that by going to India and not marrying him, that was half a sacrifice, that was something that God would disapprove of and utterly reject. I don't think that is right, or even biblical. I do not believe God ever says anywhere on the Bible, if you want to serve me, abandon the idea of finding love and marriage. Let's remember, you guys, Genesis. Genesis is like the first two institutions that God established were one, the Sabbath, and two, marriage, because it is not good for man to be without a partner, right? So God does not want people to be single in order to please him and serve him. That's utter nonsense, Sinjin. And Jane should have responded with biblical quotes. I don't know, man. Jane, quote, Gandalf, be silent, keep your fork and tongue behind your teeth. Tell that to Sinjin. Oh, what a great line. Also says, Jane, Red Tempest is full of arguments for Jane. If only Jane had listened. Says Jane, tell him, I did not pass through fire and sorrow to bandy crooked words with with a witless worm. Oh my goodness. Where are you getting these things? Jane, release the fire within you and fight back, says Red Tempest. Yes, keep telling her. And Little Butterfly says, she said, no, drop it. Cat Asterisk does point out, oh, you're right, he was conditioning her. I never realized. Yes, he said in the 10 months he knew her, he started like observing her. So everything from like how she started her little school, that was kind of a test. That was not kind of a test. That was a test. He knew that she came from like a good place. She was like a lady, a governess in a good house with good education. And then he put her to like this humble schoolroom situation. Anyway, it's not like he did it on purpose, but he said like, this will be profitable to me to see how she reacts. And every single time he was just looking at her like a prospective tool. Yeah. Yeah, Rogelio Diaz is literally self-preservation / abuse avoidance. Jane, you have your 2 female cousins who adore you. You have them in England, says Red Tempest. Yes. Red Tempest says, you just made the other meme. Oh, there's another meme. Lord of the Rings. Hold on, Red Tempest. Okay. That was the meme I had thought you had made. Yes, run, Jane, run. Thank you for humoring your magpie with such excellent memes, Red Tempest. Okay, so it's from Lord of the Rings. I will be honest with you guys. I have absolutely kill me or chastise me or whatever. I have never ever, and I probably will never ever read or watched Lord of the Rings or the Harry Potter movies or like a whole bunch of those big franchises. I just won't. I cannot, have not. So, or The Hobbit. So while I know enough to understand meme tradition and meme references, I don't know. I haven't did. So any tiny morsels you can to enrich my lexicon are appreciated. So thank you again for the memes. Little Butterfly says St. Paul said not all people are called to be married. Of course, yeah, but St. Paul was it? He said people were eunuchs serving the Lord. Some were eunuchs by choice. some were eunuchs because they had been made eunuchs. So that was kind of like his thing. But again, not everybody, like Peter was married. Okay, Peter had a mother-in-law. He was called to the service and he did his service. He was married, you guys. So many people might have thought that. Anyway, I don't know. I don't know where exactly the need for celibacy to serve the Lord comes from. Anyway, I mean, if St. John, I'm sure is going to do great things. There's people who are meant to do great things, great sacrifices, to put your heart on the altar. That's wonderful. And if you do it for the love of God, great. But don't try to impose that burden on somebody else who has not received that missionary call, who has not the same gifts, the same aptitudes as yourself. Like, don't expect that of her. Jane does not need this. You guys. So, you don't have to read them. Watching is another thing. Oh, okay, the movies. Okay, the movies. You don't have to read them. Watching is another thing. Yeah, all right. I'll think about it. So you guys, I hope you enjoyed today's read along. I had lots of fun reading it. I think you'll enjoy next chapter. Let me see. What chapter is this? Chapter 35. Oh my goodness, you guys. Let's see how far into the book we are. 47 divided by 612. We are 89% of the way into the book, so we're a little under 10% of the book. Like a tenth of the book is left. Probably, let's see, how many more sessions? 1, 2, 3, 4 sessions at most. 4 sessions, and we're done. Yeah, you guys, aren't you excited? I am excited. Crusher says, by the way, greetings from my job's break room. Hello, Crusher. Happy you were able to join us. And you did miss a lot, so I hope you enjoyed the replay. I hope that you can join in on the next time. Wednesday, I believe Wednesday I will be able to do a morning read, and Friday will be an evening read. I think that's how it's going to be. So do keep that in mind as you plan the week. Yeah, and if you are a bookworm pre-pub reader, I will see you guys tomorrow for our weekly pre-pub chat. It is 7 more to go before the end of our pre-pub chit chat, so I hope you enjoy it. Don't miss out. It'll be Tuesday afternoon, or maybe it'll be Tuesday afternoon, as always. And so your magpie will meanwhile be thinking about the next book that we're going to be reading. I do believe I owe you guys Persuasion, so we are going to go into Persuasion. I was watching the movie last night. It was great. I really enjoyed it. And also, you guys, if you want me to do any merch for Jane Eyre, give me some ideas, because I'm thinking of doing more merch for Blue Castle and Jane Eyre. I haven't released it because Redbubble is being a jerk. So I'm just going to release it on my other sites, even though I wanted to leave those for strictly Bookworm, but I might as well just release it somewhere else. If you have any ideas, let me know. I have some ideas like bumping around in my head, clattering there, but just haven't had much time lately with work and Bookworm and stuff like that. So, but yeah, I will be doing that. I'm also working on some original content for this channel, and I'm still editing the Blue Castle. If you are a Ko-fi member, I will be posting a preview of what I'm doing in the Ko-fi sometime this week, so be on the lookout for that. Until then, you guys, I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Remember to run from Sinjin, to be true to your principles, not exactly true to your heart, because sometimes what your heart says could be leading you down the path to ruin, but do live up to your principles. Remember Jane, and hopefully, though, Jane continues her streak of turning down toxic offers from toxic men. Here's hoping. Yes, Red Tempest says 4 chapters left to go. We'll have to see how this crazy story ends. And Rogelio Diaz says, don't remind me that those are the last pre-pubs. I know, I can't help it though. I can't help it. I find some strange delight and horrible sinking feeling to know that people are going to experience the same horrible void that you feel when you finish the web novel, you guys. I literally had like a day of full out depression. I was very depressed the day after I finished the web novel. I was very sad. And I felt like this gaping hole inside me. So I am looking forward to the time when a whole bunch of pre-pub people will feel the same. Anyway, that aside, we will be reading the encyclopedia as the next book. Yes, I will be reading it. No. I'm going to be reading Persuasion. And then probably I might either go for Pride and Prejudice, which is an amazing book. And I think you will love it if you enjoy the Blue Castle. And then I may do A Little Princess, which you will enjoy if you like Jane Eyre. Or maybe... And then I am thinking of this book that's not public domain, but I love it so much, you guys. But I will leave that later because we're still several months away from that happening. But until then, you guys, I think I must say goodbye right now. My cup is actually empty. My mouth is dry. And I just realized that my music is not streaming. Oh my gosh, you guys, I'm so sorry. There's no music. Here I'm listening to sweet tunes and you guys can't. I'll fix that right now. All right, you guys, take care. Thank you for joining me. I will see you on Wednesday. What did I say? Wednesday morning? Yes, Wednesday morning. Okay. Take care and thank you for joining me, everybody. Till Wednesday. Bye-bye.